It's my pleasure to be speaking to you today about speed and value sustainability through wiring. We'll be describing what we mean by wiring in more detail throughout the presentation. The objective essentially is to capture benefits through rapid technology deployment, especially in the new normal, the new world that we're in today with the connected worker, the connected enterprise. And so it's important, A, to have the right speed, and B, to capture the value through and sustain that value through wiring. I think we'll all agree that companies today are struggling to successfully capture meaningful value from their digital investments. Technology in isolation can only take us so far. We need adoption, we need acceptance of new ways of working, and we need to intrinsically link that to value and to value driver trees, so to ensure that everything that we do has an output, has a value output for the corporation, for the enterprise. So wiring, as you'll see there, is a specific methodology that addresses capabilities, it addresses alignment, it addresses the KPIs and transparency throughout the organization. On the bottom left-hand side, we see the value pathway. For many digital programs, we get a step change as the technology is implemented. It could be digital, it could be another technology as well. But then we also find that the usage drops and also the rate of implementation can slow down as we encounter resistance in the organization to adopting that technology, that change, and therefore we are slowed down in capturing value. So what we are going to be talking about is how wiring, over on the right-hand side, wiring into how business operates and how business creates value and how people behave is a sustainable way to create a continuous improvement cycle and cycles, in fact, and to reach full value potential of the organization. So it's a very people-centric approach, operation-centric approach, to capture real value from digital investments and technology investments as well, of course. So to fully unlock the value of digital technology, companies need to approach this coherently and holistically. And some of our recommendations on the right-hand side include, for instance, being value-driven. That's absolutely critical. The technology, whatever that technology is, needs to be intrinsically linked to the value drivers of the business. So we need to be value-driven and not just be looking for a short-term incremental productivity or a short-term cost reduction benefit. Secondly, we believe it's absolutely fundamentally important that we are led by operations. This is a key premise in terms of how we approach these programs. So led by operations, operations creates the connected enterprise, the knowledge worker, the connected worker, and it's there that we start to create value, capturing value, and getting real KPI improvement. Then the third point is that it's not only about technology, as we've said previously. It's about behaviors, capabilities, processes. These need to be incorporated into the solution that we are planning to adopt. And then finally, it's not just about pilots or proof of concepts. It's about creating a continuous loop, a continuum, a roadmap between long-term vision and short-term gains that we are likely to make the project, the program that we are entering and embarking upon to create long-term sustainable value, with the emphasis on sustaining and growing. But of course, we need to understand where companies are on their system and data maturity journey, as well as the internal appetite for change. Some organizations and some cultures are more closed and others are more open to change. So for example, in a more closed environment with a lower system and data maturity, we need to look at basic and easy to buy solutions, always with a data management focus. Data is always the starting point. Quality data, validated data. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, companies that are very advanced in system and data maturity and very open in terms of accepting change and enabling change, there we have a holistic system with guaranteed outcomes. And those outcomes are created with partners. They are co-created. New solutions come into play to the business challenges. So the holistic ecosystem is what we're aiming for. In a company with less advanced system and data maturity but open to change, then we normally recommend a modular journey on a common platform. So on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the key insights. And we've noticed that, in the past year or so, there has been tremendous digital acceleration due to COVID, due to remote working. The acceleration, in some cases, 3 to 5 years. Organizations that had started to use digital and were quite advanced in digital have really accelerated digital implementation over the past year or so. But again, stressing that the solution needs to focus on data connectivity and architecture. So data and people are the two ends of the spectrum that we need to focus on and avoid shadow data, avoid shadow applications, and create a digital democracy, as it's sometimes referred to. And successful execution requires 4 building blocks that we typically approach this with, and the framework has these 4 building blocks that you see displayed here. Those building blocks start with maintaining alignment and ownership. That's not as easy as it sounds because of the siloed mentality that we have sometimes throughout an organization. So it's engaging people through different channels. It's creating clarity of the ambitions and creating the right governance model. And it's also about building the organizational wiring that we will come to in just a moment in more detail. So it's defining the right set of KPIs, making performance transparent, and holding individuals to account. This is how we create and promote the high-performance culture. But it's also about building a capability to deliver. And this also means transformational leadership capabilities, developing the digital native workforce, utilizing online learning tools and other methods to build that capability that we will need to create a lasting value from our digital solutions. And then it's building a continuous digital pipeline. So it's not a one-off event, it's a continuous set of events, creating that continuous improvement cycle that we wish to have. And so this slide describes in a little bit more detail the way we operate, the way we apply technology, and it basically, as you can see, starts at the front line. It starts in the shop floor. It starts on the platform or the rig or the FPSO or the refinery. So it's operating strategy and values. So what do people know what a good day looks like? Do the people working on the plant really know what a good day looks like? And so we start our journey there looking at their output KPIs and their input KPIs to make sure that they're working on the things they can manage to create the value that we wish to be created for the company. Then we move on to the operating disciplines. Do we have clarity on what we need to do to deliver the operating strategy? And do we know how to do those things well? And then the second part of the pyramid is accountability. Is accountability assigned? And this is one area where we sometimes see need for an intervention, need for quite a bit of work to ensure that individuals' roles, their measurement, their incentives are all aligned internally and with the operating strategy rather than aligned for their department or for their particular activity, but not in a continuum with the rest of the organization. Sustaining disciplines is the next level where we track progress and review that progress. Individuals need to be held to account. We will be working in a far more transparent environment, and that's a good thing because we can see the status of different activities, how information is flowing, and that information leading to better decision making. And then finally, it's the continuous improvement. So, as I said earlier, improvement is not a one-off event. It's a continuous process. We need to establish and upskill the continuous improvement team in the line, the emphasis being owned and driven by the line. So this is the wiring pyramid, as we call it. And of course, throughout the pyramid, we need to have visible leadership, leading by example, and building a culture of value-focused agility. So our industry still has a tendency to operate in silos, as I said earlier. And so one of the reasons we start at the operations level is we need to look for the interfaces that are critical along the core value processes. In this example, we've got 8 key interfaces that we identified, and these are for a capital project delivery process. And as we map those and clearly create the connectivity between those interfaces, between those teams and those groups of people, we then create a high-level design that ensures execution and delivery seamlessly. We're eliminating barriers, we're eliminating silos to enable faster and better decisions that we can then digitally enable in order to create greater value. Couple of case examples to start to wrap up. So case example 1, leveraging big data and predictive analytics. Predictive analytics is nothing essentially new, and we've got AI and ML now as well. But it's not just about the tool. It's moving beyond the tools themselves that we had to create the right team KPIs, ensure they were aligned, create the right transparency, and ensure that continuous improvement is embedded. That is very, very key. So really it's steps 8 and 9 where we put in place continuous improvement of model predictions in this case, and we design a program, a holistic program that moves beyond point solutions to reduce failure probability. So fit-for-purpose digital solutions make the performance of an organization highly transparent, as we said, and creates a high-performance culture. And there is a term here being used, single source of truth, and I'm sure that will be familiar to many of you. This is a key objective because sometimes we encounter shadow data, shadow versions of the truth, and so when we're trying to create an integrated and unified view of the status of an organization, how it's performing and how it could perform, we need a single source of truth. So a performance management system that ensures a single source of truth is absolutely critical, and you see here how we would go about doing that. In the second case example, this is an example where data and domain expertise come together. This is data and linking data with people that have the right expertise in order to connect the enterprise to make the right decisions. So the objectives are, yes, a greater understanding of what's happening around the various teams and departments, breaking down silos, clarity on the status and connectivity around data and status at any given time. But it's also an appreciation of the part each team plays in the business cycle in making their decisions, in their accountability and responsibility. Without this, we cannot embark upon a real sustainable value creation journey. And so having clear meeting inputs, agendas and outputs, all of which are visible, will allow aligned decision making. This is very, very true in today's world of remote operations with connected workers. We need to have clarity at all times, visibility at all times in terms of the KPIs, the health of the business, so that collectively we can make the right decisions and we're flagging the right issues. So here we apply a 3-step process for this particular scenario where we looked at the existing performance management meetings and reporting. We looked at the underlying information systems and data, sort of how data and information is circulating within the organization, then provide recommendations and implement those recommendations to create improvement opportunities and capture the value. So it's really, back up to the top there, it's really Do the right people make the right decisions at the right times? Do they have the right information? And then what are the underlying systems and data, not just the data itself, but the quality, the validity of the data, supplying this data so that people can make the right decisions and enter into the continuous improvement cycles that we wish them to. In the last case example, we're referring here to an operations transformation at a Downstream company, and we had a 20% increase in output through a PMO, Program Management Office, that was implemented. And what we did here was, first of all, establish clear RACI matrices and clarity around the functions and the interlock between those functions and the alignment between those groups and those interfaces. Then we also looked at prioritization. That's usually a very big issue. Prioritizing improvement ideas. And how do we prioritize? Back to the value, back to value driver trees and the way that we make our decision prioritized based upon the value that we can create. And so ultimately what we did here is managing and tracking all of this, creating the process. We were able to debottleneck, and that led to a significant increase in the output. So essentially what we've done here, we've focused on how wiring an organization, creating a value-focused culture with the right set of behaviors can accelerate benefits capture. And part of that is definitely digital, part of that is definitely technology, but in our opinion, the most important part is the human beings, is the people using that digital, those digital tools and that technology that ultimately will create value for the enterprise. Thank you very much.